cardio workout, like a hard cardio workout before, and then
just eating a little bit, listening to this podcast. Danny Jones got this man on here talking about mitochondrial health, and I'm interested in it. So I'm about to listen to a little of this. Let's go.
Sleep right. When you do these things that care for your mitochondria, all of the energy processing parts of your body, all their function is going to improve. Now, one thing that you can do that is even better than exercise for your mitochondria is get into the cold. Here we have it from animal models, and particularly mice, who are really easy to study. They have a lot of brown fat, and it doesn't totally port over to human beings. But in this case, we have good reason to believe that what we're seeing in mice is also a reasonable approximation of what we see in human beings. Yep. You get into the cold, and you stimulate what's called mitobiogenesis. Your mitochondria have their own DNA. They reproduce of their own accord. They are inherited exclusively from your mother. That is, the DNA in your mitochondria come exclusively from your mother. It's not like a sexual reproduction thing. When you stimulate mitobiogenesis, your body will select the mitochondria with the greatest DNA integrity. It will reproduce those mitochondria so that you have more and they function better. So the mice data is very good. We know from human studies that humans can recruit brown fat. Here's the before picture of a cancer patient, and here's the after a month of cold plunge therapy, and you can see the brown fat in their PET scan. The tumors shrink, the brown fat grows.
Why is brown fat good? Because it's dense with mitochondria?
Exactly right. Thousands of mitochondria in the brown fat. Sometimes I'll talk to women and they'll say, well, I don't want fat, but that's not the fat we're talking about. There's white fat, and white fat stores energy. The job of brown fat is to burn the energy
it's
up.
not subcutaneous fat. It's deep tissue fat.
You got it.
Deep in with it, like between below, like even beneath the muscles, like in between the organs, like layering the organs, things like that.
Sounds like maybe you've seen a picture too that Alexis Cowan has, put out on Instagram. The brown fat is located inside the body so that when it generates heat, it keeps your vital organs warm.
Right.
It's to defend your body. But it does other things. It is also an essential secretory organ. So it will secrete more more active thyroid hormone than your thyroid does. It will take the inactive form of thyroid, convert it to the active form. Brown fat and the thyroid gland are in constant communication. So if you don't get cold and you don't have any brown fat, it's no wonder your thyroid gets dysregulated, whether that's Graves or Hashimoto. So it could be overactive or it could be underactive. It's got nothing to work with. It's got nothing modulating its function because there's no brown fat in the body. This happens in Florida and it happens in Arizona. Then people will get advice from their doctor saying, well, you have an irregular thyroid function. That's why you're not cold tolerant. You should just turn up the thermostat a little bit and try and stay warm and comfortable, which is the worst advice that you could possibly get. The opposite is true. You should be getting a little bit of cold discomfort so that you can bring your brown fat back online.
Right.
There are a number of cases of women who have reversed Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is another one of those supposedly lifetime degenerative chronic diseases for which there's no cure. But there is. You get into the cold, you do it every day. You recruit your brown fat. You can clean up your diet, which is a very good thing for anybody to do, regardless of their thyroid condition. And you can reverse thyroid conditions metabolically. So the brown fat is not just sort of a nice to have for cold thermogenesis. It's also associated with increased neuroprotective factors. It's increased rate of healing from traumatic brain injury. So it will protect the brain. It will modulate metabolism, correct thyroid disorders. If you don't have brown fat, you are missing an essential organ that your body is relying upon. And 95% of the adults tested in America, zero detectable brown fat, especially as people are moving south into warmer, they say, you don't have to shovel sunshine. That's one of the things people move to Arizona for, but they're missing the cold.
That's an interesting thing about bringing it back to Denmark is that there's so little sunlight in Denmark. So it's a very dark part of the world, right? And it's always cold. So it's almost like nature has this way of balancing out for you, balancing it out for you.
Correct.
So because if you have the lack of sunlight, which is another fundamental source of mitochondrial fuel, it will compensate for the cold. And another thing Alexis was saying that blew my mind when
Hope
she
you
was on
good
here
today.
was that
Hope you good
people
today.
up in those northern latitudes, that's why they have lighter eyes, because they can bring in more light with the lighter eyes. And people at the equatorial latitudes have darker eyes because they have so much light they don't need it.
Correct. They're actually
And also why they have darker skin,
to
because
protect. So it will protect the brain. It will modulate metabolism, correct thyroid
just said something
disorders.
about light
If you
eyes and
don't
dark
have
eyes.
brown
I got
fat,
super
you
light
are
eyes. I
missing
gotta hear
an
that shit.
essential organ that your body is relying upon. And 95% of the adults tested in America, zero detectable brown fat. Especially as people are moving south into warmer, they say you don't have to shovel sunshine. That's one of the things people move to Arizona for, but they're missing the cold.
That's an interesting thing about bringing it back to Denmark, is that there's so little sunlight in Denmark. So it's a very dark part of the world, right? And it's always cold. So it's almost like nature has this way of balancing out for you, balancing it out for you.
Correct.
So like, because if you have the lack of sunlight, which is another fundamental source of mitochondrial fuel, it will compensate for the cold. And another thing Alexis was saying that blew my mind when she was on here was that people up in those northern latitudes, that's why they have lighter eyes, because they can bring in more light with the lighter eyes. And people at the equatorial latitudes have darker eyes because they have so much light they don't need it.
Correct. They're actually
And also why they have darker skin, because it protects themselves from the sun. People up there, they have lighter skin so they can absorb more.
Now, my understanding of Alexis is that the melanin you produce in your skin and your eyes, it does protect yourself from overdose of UVA or UVB.
That's not right. The darker you are, the more light you absorb. He need to understand more about colors. Light colors reflect light. That's why they say in the heat you wear a white shirt so it can reflect the light. And in the dark, they say don't wear dark colors in the heat because it pulls the heat in. So that's one thing he just said wrong. I still fuck with him though.
But it's even more than that. She'll say that it is a semiconductor that is activated by the UVA, UVB. It's not just protective, but it's also useful. It's not my area of expertise. You could guess, but I've looked this up on Ancestry.com. I've talked to my grandparents. My people, they come from the North Sea. They come from the cold climates, and maybe that explains blue eyes. But the theory is that people will survive the long winters up there without the vitamin D that they would ordinarily synthesize when they're exposed to UVB sunlight, because they're eating, seal blubber or cod liver or something like that. Now, there is vitamin D, in particular in cod liver oil and in some seafoods. But seal blubber is not what kept my ancestors alive 1,000 years ago. When you get into the cold and you activate your mitochondria, there's something called the electron transport chain. These facilitate redox reactions, that is transfer of electrons from some molecules to other. When those electrons are transferred, they cannot help but emit light. This is what happens in high school chemistry class. This is the way physics works. So you move an electron from one shell, particularly from a higher shell to a lower shell, but when electrons move like that, they emit what's called biophotons. Now, this is where it gets really cool. Suzanne Humphreys just tweeted this out last week. This is a study from 2024, 2025. Every living system examined emits biophotons. So these are the mitochondria inside your body producing light.
Is this Fritz Popp stuff?
I don't know Fritz Popp, but maybe I should.
Yeah, he was a German biophysicist. Jack Cruz talks about him all the time.
I should probably
he
look
published
him up.
papers I think he published his paper.
So I don't know. So listen, real quick, 30 seconds, 10 seconds. Mitochondria. Do you know how important it is? We got two types of DNAs. We got nuclear DNA and we got mitochondrial DNA. Let's say you want to go get a DNA test and they are testing your nuclear DNA. They're not going to get accurate. What's going on? They're not going to get an accurate read on your DNA because mitochondrial DNA never changes. You can only receive mitochondrial DNA from your mother. So, with that being said, your mama got the same exact copy of mitochondrial DNA that you do. Nuclear DNA is the regular DNA that's in the nucleus of a cell, but it changes from every offspring. Your dad got a nuclear DNA. Your mom got a nuclear DNA. When they join together, you get your own unique nuclear DNA. But mitochondrial DNA doesn't change. So instead of people doing ancestry.com and trying to find a bloodline with the nuclear DNA, people need to start testing a mother's bloodline, because the mother's bloodline goes back to the beginning. And if you on earth breathing right now and you wasn't made in the lab, that means you are connected to the first woman ever to exist. Let's get back.
In the 60s or 70s, but he talks about how DNA and cells create UV light, small amounts of UV light, a little bit less than like bioluminescent creatures, but it was controversial at the time, but I don't think it's super
not controversial
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. It is very difficult to detect. They call it ultra weak.
Yes.
And they say ultra weak because they have such a hard time finding it. Well, when the light is being made inside the cells of your body, how the hell are you supposed to detect it? We're not really talking about phospholuminescence, which is a creature that, these happen in the ocean, that lights up. Fireflies are a wonderful example of this. In the summer, if you're in the Midwest and you see the fireflies, they're communicating with one another by producing visible light. But this light, the biophotons, they don't escape from the body at the same rate as phospholuminescent creatures would. So to detect it, they have to multiply a very weak signal. And this is something that has been difficult to do until recently. So there's a lot of misconceptions around biophotons. Things like, well, if your cells are making light in the cold, then why don't people in Scandinavia have a tan? And it's frustrating to deal with these misconceptions. This light is inside.
Yeah.
When it's inside your mitochondria, the photons that are in the UVB wavelength, and all wavelengths are produced, but that portion
UVB.
in the UVB is right next to the cholesterol molecules. The light doesn't have to travel anymore. When it intersects that cholesterol molecule, it will convert it to pre-vitamin D. The molecule has no choice. Again, this is physics. So you're making light inside your mitochondria that intersects cholesterol inside your brown fat cells, converts the cholesterol to pre-vitamin D that is then metabolized into all the different forms of vitamin D in your body. And for a long time, and by a long time I mean like 3 years, nobody would believe me because blood serum tests will not show an increase in the form of vitamin D that they typically test for in a normal blood serum test. You say, well, if you're getting cold and you're producing these biophotons, why doesn't the vitamin D show up in your bloodstream? Because vitamin D is fat soluble. It doesn't have to go into the bloodstream. It will stay right in the brown fat until your body needs it, and it'll be gradually released, right? We shouldn't really expect to see it in the bloodstream. But then, this is a month ago, a study came out of Poland. They were testing women with multiple sclerosis. Now, MS is an autoimmune disorder, and it is associated with difficulties or dysfunction in vitamin D production and vitamin D status early in life. So your vitamin D is essential to the operation of your immune system. If you don't have your vitamin D right, autoimmune disorders will emerge. So they're testing these women with multiple sclerosis. They're using cryotherapy, and they test them in comparison to women who don't have multiple sclerosis. The women who do the cryotherapy with multiple sclerosis got a boost in their blood serum levels, vitamin D. They didn't change anything else. They weren't taking supplements. They didn't have UV lights on them or anything like that. So this is the first evidence of a change in blood serum level concentrations of vitamin D. Why would it show up in someone with multiple sclerosis? And here's a hypothesis. Instagram can quote me on this, and then they'll say, he's being irresponsible in his speculation, but this is exactly how science works. It is possible that because a woman in Poland with multiple sclerosis has a disordered vitamin D metabolic system, that her body needs that vitamin D in the bloodstream right away, that rather than being stored in a brown fat cell, and there's no disputing the fact that the cryotherapy increased or is associated with the increase, because it didn't happen in the control group, but associated with the increase in blood serum vitamin D. But perhaps in a woman with multiple sclerosis, the body's like, I need it now. I need it circulating in the blood. bloodstream, and that's where I'm going to keep it so it can arrive at the cells that need it. Now that's just a hypothesis. That's a crazy idea. We ought to be able to replicate that study in other people with autoimmune disorders, whether that's Parkinson's or fibromyalgia or rheumatoid arthritis or type 1 diabetes, which I have a lot of experience with because my son was diagnosed when he was sick, when he was 6 years old. All of these are associated with vitamin D irregularities. The role of vitamin D in the development of your immune system is critical. So what happened to my ancestors, or what happens in Denmark? Let's introduce central heating. Let's introduce, triple pane, double glazed, whatever the hell are the windows with low E reflectivity. Let's ruin the light environment. Let's keep people out of the cold. Would you expect now to see increased levels of autoimmune disorders and evidence of vitamin D deficiencies? Not necessarily rickets, because you can still fortify the milk. You can still put enough of the supplemental form of vitamin D in the food to prevent rickets. But other disorders of vitamin D that show up in the immune system because the people now live these highly industrialized lives in which they don't get cold. Of course they would. We saw this. There was a longitudinal study that came out of Finland. We saw this as early as the 60s. Before my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, this study had not completed. I didn't know what causes type 1 diabetes or why he had it until about a year afterwards when the study was released, and I stumbled upon it, and it says type 1 diabetes originates in vitamin D deficiency in the first year of life. Now you have a 4-month-old. Deficiency in Type 1 diabetes originates in vitamin D deficiency in the first year of life. Now, and I stumbled upon it, and it says type 1 diabetes originates in vitamin D deficiency in the first year of life.
Type 1 diabetes develops in the vitamin D deficiency in the first year of life. In the first year of life. And without brown fat, obviously brown fat, something I just heard of, without brown fat, you can't get vitamin D if you're not in the sun. So what is brown fat? What is brown fat?
Brown fat is a recently discovered organ in adult humans. Now, why do we call it an organ? Well, just like the heart, whose job it is to pump blood, and the stomach, which has the responsibility of digesting food, brown fat has a job to do, which is to take the stored fat that it holds onto and then burn it up to keep us warm. Brown fat is different from other fats in the body in two specific ways. First, it looks brown, which is different from all the other fats in the body. The second thing is that brown fat stores fat only temporarily, with the goal of taking that fat and burning it up at a moment's notice to help keep a person warm. The other fat in the body is called white fat.
Oh yeah, about the cold. That's why they say cold
taking that fat and
plunges.
burning it up at a moment's notice to help keep a person warm. The other fat in the body is called white fat, and its job is to store fat and then release the fat slowly over time when a person hasn't eaten for some time.
So that's why the man said do them cold plunges, because the cold plunges activate the brown fat. Then the brown fat, the electrons, mitochondrial energy transferred to the light, concocted in the brown fat, produce pre-vitamin D. Vitamin D don't go nowhere, it gets stored in the fat. That's why they can't detect it. That's what the man said. Let's go back.
This is the first nonstick with no coating. The Titanium Always Pan Pro. Normally with a nonstick
Diabetes. This study had not completed. I didn't know what causes type 1 diabetes or why he had it until about a year afterwards when the study was released, and I stumbled upon it, and it says type 1 diabetes originates in vitamin D deficiency in the first year of life. Now you have a 4-month-old, and she's very precious. Is she getting enough vitamin D? Where is she going to get it from? There are two forms. or two sources. One is mom. Mom's breast milk will have vitamin D in it. But the other is the sunshine. Now, when I was the parent of an infant child, I was living in northern New York, and I had this feeling like I should go
Breastfeed
out
your
in the
kids.
winter. It's a beautiful sunny day, and I should just like experience nature with my little boy on my chest. I didn't do it. I didn't do it because I was afraid of being criticized. Everybody in your world is saying the sun is dangerous. You should not let your kids out without slathering them up with, nanostructured zinc oxide sunscreen. Never mind the organic chemical sunscreen, with some kind of mineral sunscreen or
Right.
something, or you're a bad parent. No, you're not. Get your kid out there. Get the diaper off her butt.
Well, it's
Get her in
crazy
the sun.
too when like my most recent, my daughter, my 4-month-old, when she was born, she had what's it called when they had the jaundice?
Yeah, too
She
much
had the
bilirubin.
jaundice, and then
Yeah.
they brought in this this blue light machine.
Yep.
That wraps them, covers them in blue light. They cover their eyes and put
Yep.
and the blue light's
It'll
supposed to
fix it
stop,
right away.
stop
Yep.
the jaundice,
Yep.
which was fascinating. I was like, whoa, like that's crazy. Like,
It's a photochemical reaction.
and they had to do that for like a day and a half, I think. And my wife had a C-section, so we were in the hospital for like 3 days, I think.
Yeah.
But just to like imagine that a baby can be born and not have any exposure to the natural world or any sort of natural light for 3 days was like wild.
Yeah.
So as soon as we brought her home, we literally kept her outside all day, every day.
Good job.
We like brought her bassinet out back, like under our little
Yep.
covered lanai or whatever. And she slept out there literally all day long.
Yep.
So
You're doing great. There's an odd practice in
Get them
Denmark
babies
that
in the
shocked
sun,
me.
man. Get yourself in the sun.
They put their babies in strollers and they're going around
Yeah.
Copenhagen or whatever they're doing, and they're going to have lunch or something. They leave their baby
Mm.
outside on the sidewalk in the stroller. Now, you can't imagine doing that in America. You'd be
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
arrested for child neglect or something. But this is the custom in Denmark. And it doesn't matter if it's winter. They're all wrapped up. This is fairly common tradition in these northern European climates to take the baby out in the wintertime and allow it to be cold, to let it get some. Now, in the winter, there's no UVB. You're not making vitamin D in sunlight that has no UVB, but it is cold. And
what is the difference? Can you like refresh me? What's the difference between the UVB and UVA?
It's the wavelength. So the shorter the wavelength, the more energetic the light is. There's visible light.
Right.
And so you go all the way to blue, and then it becomes invisible. Bees can see ultraviolet light.
Yeah.
We can't. But a flower that hasn't been pollinated will emit ultraviolet light because it has a static charge on it. So the bee can see it, know that flower hasn't been pollinated, go pollinate it, fly off, and all the bees will know which
Right.
flowers have been pollinated and which haven't. But we don't see it. So UVA is the longest wavelength in the UV
That's
spectrum.
the early morning light.
Yeah, it's the
Okay.
first one that comes online in the morning.
Yeah.
In the morning, you'll get the infrared, the near infrared, things are starting to warm up. Because the sun is so low in the horizon, it has a very long path through the atmosphere. And so the shorter wavelengths of light are all attenuated or refracted off. The sun comes up, and the first part of the UV spectrum to appear is the UVA. That's the longer wavelength. You have to let the sun go further up, shorter path through the atmosphere for the UVB to come on. This is very important. There is no exposure in the natural world to UVB light without UVA being present and without infrared and near infrared being present. It's by the time you get to UVB, the UV, which is the shortest of the wavelengths, UVA will be there and all the infrared spectrums will be there as well.
So you're saying that during the winter, there's no
There's no
UVA?
UVB. There's no UVB.
Oh, no UVB.
There's no UVB in the northern latitudes. It's because the sun goes down so low. Like when I was in Iceland in December, I forget, we had maybe 4 hours of sunshine, but the whole day was like sunset. So It's actually gorgeous. If you're going to shoot a movie or something, like
yeah.
Iceland is the way to go because you have such great light. The sun is so low on the horizon that it's always a long path through the atmosphere, and there's no UV light in that. So where I was living in northern New York, there would have been no UVB light if I took my son outside. But there would have been cold, and the cold would have produced light inside his body that still would have made some vitamin D.
Right.
In Florida, you're far enough south so that even in the wintertime, and here we're recording in September, we're not all the way through the equinox, but you'll still get some UVB during the middle of the day at the latitudes at which you live. And you should take advantage of it with your daughter, as you already are.
Yeah.
In the next 60 seconds, I'm going to show you how to build a profitable t-shirt business with no inventory,
Good to
no designs.
Good to know. Good to know. Mitochondrial light.
Light waves can impact our biology, specifically with red lights, and it has to be the right type of red light with the right frequency, actually impacts the mitochondria. It stimulates the mitochondria. And we've talked about mitochondria a little bit before.
The powerhouse of the cell.
Light waves can impact our biology, specifically with
Powerhouse of the cell. Your energy. Your energy. I got some research to do. I know for a fact. Like, look at this. Just watch this. This is important.
Mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA, is a unique type of genetic material found in the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. Unlike nuclear DNA, which is inherited from both parents, mtDNA is exclusively maternally inherited. This means you inherit your mitochondrial DNA solely from your mother, making it a powerful tool for tracing.
So you inherit the powerhouse of the cell from your mother.
Maternal lineage. Mitochondria are responsible for producing ATP, the energy currency of the cell, through a process called oxidative phosphorylation. Mutations in mtDNA can lead to a variety of metabolic disorders, as mitochondria play a crucial role in energy production. Interestingly, mtDNA has a higher mutation rate compared to nuclear DNA, which can provide insights into the evolutionary history of species. Researchers have used mtDNA to study human migrations and understand the genetic diversity of populations. This tiny, circular strand of DNA not only fuels our cells, but also unlocks clues about our ancestry and evolutionary history, showcasing the marvels hidden within our cellular structure.
So, I just thought about something. We got all these light rays. They said you can get exposed to, you can do your light or whatever fucking light they said you can do. They said the light triggers the mitochondria. And the two ways you can get vitamin D, the sun and your mom breast milk. Okay. And then he just said that in the morning you got infrared spectrum of waves coming from the sun. You got UVA spectrum of rays. And then around noon you got UVB. You can look at the sun and trigger your MT. You can look at the sun and trigger your mitochondria.
If you at any time need to write literally anything for school, there's a tool that is more essential than bringing your bag to class.
Hey there, it's Dr. Peebler again. I wanted to talk about some mitochondrial self-care. We're talking a lot about in the series at this moment, kind of the background of how mitochondria get damaged, how they repair them. The sun is going to be able to give you the most bang for the buck when it comes to mitochondrial redox. As a matter of fact, I think that the top health hack to improve your general health, but to, for disease prevention and reversal, is going to be through the use of full spectrum sunlight. And this is the time of year when you.
But first, you need the brown fat. We can't forget you need the brown fat. I need to find out how many ways can you produce brown fat.
Expand my knowledge on brown fat.
You can activate the brown fat with just a little bit of exposure to cold. Cold is the most potent stressor activator of our brown fat. A hand actually just to cold water. Studies have shown that if you just put your hand in cold water, not that you're going to do that all day or every day or anything. It's not something you have to do, but it just shows that you can activate your brown fat just by getting a temperature change on your skin. So you can go outside in t-shirts. That's why also we were just talking about, people who works outside or move a lot or get out, in and out of it, like changing the temperature of their body all the time, they will have more brown fat. And activating that is going to keep your metabolism higher and your insulin sensitivity. Study have also.
Fuck metabolism. Okay. Changing the temperature of your body produces the brown fat instantly. Look or get in the sun. The sun is going to trigger your mitochondria. The mitochondria is going to collect within your brown fat and produce vitamin D, the precursor to all cure of disease. This is very important. We have not learned about fucking brown fat. And now I'm going to end this so I can post this, because this shit is crazy, man.